So, good morning. My name is Miss Megan, and I'm the nutrition educator for Greater Newark Conservancy. And with me today, I have Ellie helping out. So, thank you, Ellie. Ellie is one of our wonderful interns and also works on our farm, and so she's going to help out today. So, Khadija and Bianca, feel free to turn your cameras on if you'd like to. And if you have any questions as we are making the recipe together, feel free to unmute yourself as well, or you can use the chat function. Okay, and I'll just keep the Facebook Live video open on my phone in case we get any questions or comments there as well. Okay, so today we are making vegetable fried rice. And there are a few reasons why I chose this recipe. So for one thing, it's pretty easy to make. It's a great way to use up leftover rice. So if you have some leftover brown rice or white rice that you don't really know what else to eat with it and you want to make sure you use it before it goes bad, you can throw it into this leftover fried rice recipe. And it's also a great way to get lots of vegetables into a meal. Because as you're going to see as we go through the ingredients, there are lots of different spring veggies in this recipe. So we're at the beginning of spring, right? We're a week into spring, and March is also National Nutrition Month. So we're at the end of March, but it's still Nutrition Month, and so I thought that this would be a good recipe to celebrate both spring and utilizing lots of veggies. So why don't we start by going through the recipe, and also just as a reminder, as we're going to start touching ingredients, you want to make sure that you always wash your hands first. So I've already washed my hands. I also already washed my veggies, so those are ready to go. So make sure that you've done that. And with that, why don't we go through the ingredients? So anybody who registered for the program should have received, I know my copy is really crinkled and wrinkled, but anyone who registered should have received a recipe card in your email. I believe we also shared it on our social media. So, but just in case you don't have it in front of you, let's go through it together. Okay, so the ingredients we're going to need. Of course, we need some leftover rice. So I've got my big container of leftover brown rice here. I'm probably not going to use all of this. There's a lot here. But make sure you have some leftover rice. And then we're going to need onion. So I actually already chopped up my onion. That's the only thing I prepped, I promise. But I've got some onion here. We're going to need 2 or 3 cloves of garlic. Some fresh ginger root, so I'm using about a 1-inch piece of fresh ginger root. We're going to need a stalk of celery, a carrot. I'm going to use like half of a bell pepper, so any color bell pepper that you have on hand, some broccoli, and then radishes, which are a nice spring veggie. Got some radishes. Some mushrooms. I'm going to throw in some scallions and leafy greens. So I've got bok choy here. So I've got bok choy, but you could also use spinach or kale or some other kind of leafy green. And then we need eggs. I think I'm going to add 3. You could add 2 or 3 eggs. If you want to make this a vegan recipe, you could use tofu instead. So we could talk more about that as we start to cook. And then we're going to need some oil. You could use olive oil or grapeseed oil or sesame oil. You can use a little bit of soy sauce or tamari, salt and pepper, and then I'll throw in some cilantro at the end. And I think that's about all we need. And again, one of the great things about this recipe is you can really use whatever veggies you already have. So you can use the same vegetables that I'm using today. You could use other vegetables. So it's really whatever you already have at home. It's a great way to use those up as well. Okay. All right, so why don't we start by going over knife skills, making sure we all know how to safely use a knife. And hopefully you can see my cutting board okay, right? Yeah, okay, good. All right, so excellent. Okay.
Oh, Bianca, you're unmuted.
Oh, sorry.
It's
Oh, it's
okay.
okay. Yeah. And again, if you want to turn on your cameras, feel free. You don't have to, but you could also turn them on at the end. So let me make sure that I'm going to put myself on speaker view so that you can all see my cutting board okay. All right, tilt it down a little bit. Okay, so let's talk about knife skills a little bit. And anybody who's watching who's tuned in before, we do this every time because we want to make sure that we're using our knife safely. So the first thing is holding the knife safely. And again, if you're cooking with your kids, this is something that, even our youngest children can learn how to cut safely. They can use a butter knife, they can use a plastic knife, whatever you're comfortable letting them use. So let's make sure that we're holding our knife safely. So you want to hold the knife with your dominant hand, right? So I'm a lefty, I'm holding mine with my left hand. And you want to hold it right up at the blade because you have the most control here. If you hold it at the end of the knife, that could be a little precarious. So you want to hold it right up where the handle meets the blade. Okay? So we're holding our knife. And now let's go over a couple of cutting motions. So in general, you want to keep your knife in contact with the cutting board. So we're either going to saw back and forth like this, or we can do this seesaw motion. So whatever we're cutting, we can do this seesaw. So sawing or seesawing. Okay? All right. And then how do we hold the item that we're cutting? So for example, if I want to cut this bell pepper that I've got here, and I want to make sure that I don't cut my fingers or cut into anything, how should I hold this bell pepper safely so I can cut it? So we want to make a nice, fierce bear claw, right? Like this. So you want to hold it like that. And that way, when I go to cut it, I'm protecting my fingertips. Okay? So as much as possible, whatever you're cutting, if you can hold it with a bear claw, that'll be a little bit safer. Okay? So those are the basics of knife skills. And with that, if our hands are clean and our veggies are clean, why don't we get started? So the first thing we're going to do for this recipe is we're going to chop up all of the crunchy veggies. So for me, that means I already did my onion. I already did that step. So we want to chop up onion, bell pepper, carrot, celery, and radishes and broccoli. These are all the veggies that need a little bit longer to cook. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and put some olive oil in my skillet here. Just going to drizzle some olive oil in there so it's ready to go. And again, you can use a different type of oil if you would like. And I'm going to go ahead and cut up half of a bell pepper. The rest of it I'm going to put away. I've got this bees wrap that I like to use because it's reusable. So I'm going to wrap up the rest of the bell pepper for another recipe. So let's go ahead and chop up our veggies. Basically, as small as you can make them. Okay? And as you're chopping up your vegetables, you can either put them directly in your skillet, or if you want, you could put them in a bowl first and then dump that into the skillet. So I think I'll put them in this bowl. and then from there I'll add it into the skillet. Okay, and as we're going along, feel free to put your questions, your comments in the chat if you're on Zoom, or comment on the Facebook video if you're watching on Facebook. Okay. So I'm going to add my onion to the bowl. I'm going to add bell pepper. To the bowl. Then let's do some celery. So I'm going to cut off the bottom of the celery. Now, the other thing I'm going to do, whatever parts of the vegetables I don't use, I'm going to compost. Okay, so I've got my little kitchen compost here. And whatever I don't want to cook with, rather than throwing it in the garbage, which goes to a landfill, I put it in my compost. So the cool thing about compost is that over time, it turns into soil that you can use to grow new vegetables. So it's kind of like recycling, but for vegetables. So if any of you garden, then you know that compost is really important for gardening. And you can compost vegetable scraps, banana peels, and other parts of fruit, coffee grounds, eggshells. So there are lots of things that you have at home that could go in the compost instead of the garbage. All right, so now I've got my celery. That smells really good. I'm going to add that to the bowl. And then let's do some carrot. So I'm just going to peel the carrot a little bit. You don't really need to. I mean, it's clean. But I'll take some of these peels. And that can go in the compost, as well as the ends. Okay. So we chop up our carrot. And cut it in half. All right, I'm gonna add the carrot to the bowl. And then, let's see, I'm also gonna add some radishes. So radishes are one of the first vegetables that are grown in the spring. And radishes are really fun to grow. So especially with your kids, because radishes grow so quickly. So, you know, if you're impatient to see the fruit of your labor, radishes are a good thing to start with because they grow so quickly. And I love to add radishes because they're a little bit spicy, so they add a little bit more kick to recipes that you add them to. So they're great in salads, raw, but they're also going to really add some oomph to this fried rice recipe. All right, so I got my radishes, and I was just slicing these, but I think I'm going to chop these, make them a little bit smaller. These are a little bit big. Okay.
Hey, Megan.
Yes.
So, did you say that you don't have to peel the carrot if it's clean?
Right, especially if it's organic. If you either grew it yourself or if you purchased organic carrots, then you don't really have to worry about peeling it. If it's a conventional carrot, then I would peel it, definitely. Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so I think my last crunchy vegetable for today is broccoli. So I just have these broccoli florets, and then the stalk I'm gonna compost. And I'll make these florets a little bit smaller, chop them up a little bit. Okay. All right, and I also happen to have some leftover cabbage from the emergency food distribution we do at the Conservancy. So this happens to be already chopped, and so I'm going to add a little bit of this cabbage as well, and it'll just add a little bit more color. So if you have cabbage at home, that could be good too. Okay, so I'm going to heat up the oil a little bit, and as you can see, we've got some really beautiful color here, right? We've got the green and the orange, the red, the purple. So we're going to add these crunchy vegetables to our skillet, like this.
Are you gonna add the bok choy?
That's a good question. I'm going to add that a little bit later. Yeah, the bok choy. Because it's a leafy green and it's a little bit softer, I'm going to add that in. Exactly. Yeah. Even though it has, so we are going to use the stem as well. And the stem's a little bit crunchier. But even still, I'm going to add that in a little bit later. That's a good question. Okay, so we're letting our crunchy vegetables cook over medium or medium-high heat in some oil. And let me just check the Facebook page. Okay. Oh, so Nikki's commenting that you have the superhero cookbook. I'm so glad you have that. And thank you for bringing it up, because that's a good reminder. So I'm going to talk about the superhero cookbook as well as we go along. Okay, so our crunchy veggies are cooking. We're going to let those cook for a few minutes. And while those are cooking, let's keep prepping the rest of the ingredients. So that's why it's good to know what order your recipe is in and what order things should be cooked, because then you can kind of prep as you go. So the next thing that we want to prep are the soft veggies. So we're going to chop up our mushrooms. So I'm going to use 3 or 4 mushrooms.
Yeah, the show is Zoom, cooking
Oh,
Zoom.
Patricia, you're unmuted.
But the Conservancy, newer Conservancy.
That's okay. Patricia, I'm just going to put you on mute for now. And then towards the end, I'll make sure that we can ask questions. But for now, just for the sake of being able to hear. Okay, so I'm going to slice up the mushrooms, right? So again, even if you're not like holding it, you can still use the bear claw. So I'm kind of holding onto the mushroom like this with my bear claw, protecting my fingertips. And I'm just slicing it. Right. So again, if you have your kids cooking with you, maybe you don't want them cutting up an onion or something that's hard, but something like mushrooms that are really soft, they could cut these with a butter knife. So this would be a great thing for kids to help with. It's just slicing up these mushrooms. And you can make some of them a little bit smaller so that this, when we're ready to eat, that it's all bite size, right? So just making some of these a little bit smaller. Now I'm going to add this to my bowl. All right, so we got mushrooms. And you could stir your veggies occasionally to make sure they're not sticking. This is looking really beautiful. Huh? All right, so we got mushrooms. I'm gonna do some scallions. So I've got 3 scallions here. Cutting off the roots, and this is gonna go in the compost. So slice these up. And then, like Ellie was asking about, I'm gonna do the bok choy next. So you could add bok choy, you could add spinach, you could add tatsoi, kale, whatever kind of leafy greens you have at home. All right, so scallions, add these to the bowl. Okay, and then some bok choy. So this recipe says about a cup of leafy greens. And again, you can use as much or as little as you'd like. So I like bok choy because they have these crunchy stems as well. Okay. Give the veggies a stir. So it's already smelling good. All right, so we're slicing up our leafy greens. And if your kids are helping you make this, they can just rip up the leafy part of the leafy green. So if you want to have them help, they could just rip it up. Otherwise, the way I like to cut leafy greens is I like to roll it up and then thinly slice it. And then you get these nice ribbons. Okay?
Does bok choy taste like spinach? Like, what does bok choy taste like?
Yeah, I think it tastes kind of like spinach. Except the great thing is that it also has this crunchy stem. So it adds some more texture to your recipes.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say that it's kind of similar to spinach.
Because it looks like it after you cut it up. It looks just like spinach.
It does, right? But it tastes good. It's really versatile. You can add it to lots of recipes. You could add it to smoothies if you want. You could saute it by itself with ginger and garlic and it tastes good just as a side dish. Or you can add it into stir fries or eggs or things like that. And like all leafy greens, it's chock full of nutrients. So it's got tons of vitamins and minerals, and it's got fiber. So it's really, really good for you. And it's really versatile. So it's a great thing to add to various recipes. So the next thing we're gonna chop up is the garlic and the ginger. Okay, this is looking really good. So I'm going to use 3 cloves of garlic because I love garlic. The more garlic, the better. And so the way that I like to peel garlic is I take a clove and I press down on it with the knife, and then you're kind of crushing the garlic, but then it's really easy to just kind of pull the wrapper, the peel right off. So it's an easy way to peel garlic. And then the peel can go in the compost. All right, so we're gonna mince the garlic. Just make this as tiny as you can. And then, so let me just look at the recipe. Okay, so we're mincing the garlic, making that really small. I'm gonna add my soft veggies in to this now. Now, I'm using kind of a medium-sized skillet. If possible, if you can use a bigger skillet, That'll make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's looking
I
like that's full right now. Like
it
you're not
is.
even gonna have room for the rice.
Well, I'll make it work.
Okay.
But the reason I had to use this size skillet is because I'm using this induction burner, and there are only very specific skillets that work with it. So if I were doing this on top of the stove, I would use like a wider mouth skillet.
Right.
Okay. So we've got the garlic, and then we're going to add some ginger. So fresh ginger root is the best. And the easiest way I've found to peel ginger is to take a spoon and to kind of scrape at the peel like this, and then the peel just comes off. Okay? So if you try to cut the peel off, then you might lose too much ginger, right? So I use a spoon, and I just kind of scrape at it, and the peel comes off. Okay? Now, what I like to do with ginger is I'll buy a big ginger root at the grocery store, and then I'll cut it into chunks. So you saw I had that like 1-inch chunk. I'll cut it into 1-inch or 2-inch pieces and put it in a Ziploc bag and put it in the freezer. And that way it won't go bad, and I can just pull out a piece or two at a time as I need them for recipes. Okay, so we're making the ginger nice and small, and the garlic nice and small, and then we'll add that to the skillet. Okay. All right. Stir all that together. So you see the leafy green, so in my case the bok choy, but any leafy green you're using has already wilted down a little bit, right? It's gotten smaller. Okay, this is smelling really good, I have to say. And then what I'm going to do, this depends on the size of your skillet here. So what I'm going to do is actually dump these veggies into this bowl because I am running out of room. If you have a really big skillet, you don't have to do this. So the next thing I'm going to do is cook the eggs. So you can use 2 or 3 eggs. I'm going to add a little bit more oil to the pan. And again, if you're doing this with your kids, if you want to crack it into a bowl first, just in case you get any shell, you could do that. So crack it into the bowl, make sure you don't have any shell. Eggshells can be composted. And you could also whisk it a little bit first before you add it to the pan. So I'm going to break it up a little with this fork, break up the yolk, and then I'm going to add it to the pan, and I'm just going to scramble these. Now, if you're making this vegan, you can use tofu instead of egg, right? So last month for Family Fun in the Kitchen, I made a tofu scramble, right? Instead of scrambled eggs, we scrambled tofu. And you could do that for this recipe as well. If you do, I would recommend, well, first of all, you should definitely use firm or extra firm tofu. You don't want to use silken or soft. The other thing I would recommend is to use probably just a half a block of tofu. You probably don't need the whole block. That would be a lot for this recipe. So I'd recommend using half a block of tofu and save the other half for another recipe. Okay. So we're just going to scramble these eggs up a little bit. And then we're going to add everything back into the pan. The veggies, we're going to add our leftover rice. So if you have leftover brown rice or white rice on hand, you could add 2 or 3 cups, really however much you want to make. All right, so we're scrambling this egg, and I'm just breaking it up into little pieces. So you can kind of break it up. Okay. Make the egg as tiny as you can. And if anybody has any questions about tofu, feel free to put questions in the chat or on the Facebook comments. But if you want to know more about tofu, definitely check out last month's Family Fun in the Kitchen program, and you'll also find on our website, I have a video of me making tofu lettuce wraps that's really good, so you can watch that video as well, and I talk a lot more about tofu there. Okay, so the eggs are scrambled and ready to go. So now let's add the veggies in. See if I can get all this to fit. Maybe I'll reserve some of these veggies for another recipe. I'm going to save a little bit there. And now let's add some rice. So I have some leftover brown rice. So I'm going to add this in. See, I'll start with that. I can always add more. So stir all this together. And then we're going to add some soy sauce or tamari. So when you're buying soy sauce, look for the one that says less sodium, the green label, because it's already very high in sodium. So I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. And if you're doing this with your kids, you might want to have them measure over a bowl first rather than over the skillet. But I'm just going to do it like that. Okay. And then you can add some salt and pepper to taste. So just sprinkle in some salt and pepper. And you could also, maybe not too much salt since we're adding soy sauce, but then some pepper. And then if you want to make it spicy, you could add some crushed red pepper flakes. And just stir it all together. Let it cook through. So now we just want the rice to heat up a little bit. So we're going to let that cook for a couple of minutes. Let's just check the recipe. The last thing I'm going to add is a little bit of cilantro. So I've got my bouquet of cilantro here. And I think it was Khadija who was asking me about storing herbs. So I wanted to spend I wanted to spend a minute on preserving herbs, because that was a great question. So while we chop up our cilantro, and if you have basil or if you have any other herbs that you want to add. So I'm just going to chop this up. So the best way to store herbs so that they last, because something like cilantro can really perish quickly if you don't store it well. The best way to store it is in a damp paper towel in a clear plastic bag in your produce drawer. So I think that method really works best. So you don't want a dry paper towel. You don't want a paper towel that's sopping wet. You just want it to be damp. So get a paper towel wet under the faucet and then squeeze it out so it's not dripping. And then wrap that around your herbs, cilantro, basil, parsley. Put it in the clear plastic bag in the fridge. And that should help prolong it. You can also do the bouquet method. So like you would with a bouquet of flowers, you could put your herb in some water in a glass and put that in the fridge, uncovered. But just be careful, because I know that I would have a tendency to tip this over if I put that in the fridge. So you would just want to be careful with that. Okay? All right, so chopping up the cilantro, I'm going to throw that in. And you could use the stems. I'm going to compost the stems, but you could use those. Okay. Oh, and I see Nikki's family cooking. It's great to see you guys.
They have the little sun in it too.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to do this over Zoom. So for much of COVID, I've just been doing it over Facebook, but then I can't see people, right? So, yeah, it's so good to see you. So, okay, so I've chopped up my cilantro. I'm gonna add that to the top of this here. All right, let's give this another stir. This is smelling really good, I have to say.
It
And
looks
I'm gonna
good.
turn, does, right?
It looks
So I
good.
don't know if I can really.
Miss Megan, I have a
Yeah.
quick question for
Yes,
you.
yep. It's
Yeah,
smelling.
absolutely.
My mic is
Was that Nikki? You have a question?
Yeah, I think it was Nikki.
Okay. Okay.
for the greens that we got from the Conservancy, I think most of them are like lettuce greens. Yes.
I think it was Nikki.
Does she see you? She don't see you.
Mute that over there.
I can see you. Yeah, I think I'm hearing feedback from the Facebook or something.
Yes. These would be like lettuce greens, right? Or these wouldn't go inside of our.
That's right. Yes. So anybody who got family cooking kits from the Conservancy, I did throw in lettuce because we had tons of lettuce in our hydroponic greenhouse. So that's just for you to use for salad or whatever you want to use. Yeah. I mean, you probably could add it to this, but I would save it for salad. But yes, that's part of Family Fun in the Kitchen, is that we also do these family cooking kits. So sometimes I give you extra veggies that don't relate to the recipe if we have them.
That's okay. I appreciate that.
I think that's kale.
Kale's okay.
That
You know,
looks
it's
like
always fun
kale.
to find a new leafy green.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you should have gotten from our hydroponic system. You should have gotten different types of lettuce, some kale, some tatsoi, right? So the really dark, round leaf with the white stem was tatsoi. You could add that into the fried rice.
Which one?
Yep. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
tatsoi.
That's the one.
I thought that was spinach. Okay, thank you.
And again, tatsoi is kind of similar to spinach, but it's got a little bit of spice to it. It's not overtly spicy, but it's got a little bit of kick to it. But the tatsoi would go great in the fried rice. And then you've also got cilantro and basil from the hydroponics. Yeah. Yeah, we've got lots growing in our hydroponic system right now, and it all looks great. So let me just check the Facebook page and see if there are any questions there. I don't think so. Okay.
There's
so
no questions
while
in the
this
chat
is-
either.
No questions in the chat.
Just letting you
Okay.
know.
Thank you. Yeah, feel free to put questions in the chat. Yes.
Go ahead.
I really do not like spiciness.
Fair enough. I understand. But I would say I don't think the tatsoi is going to be too spicy for you. It just has like a hint. You know, like a really, really subtle hint. So I would say if you want to add a little bit and see if you like it, and go from there. But yeah, it's not like super spicy. And I don't think anything else in this recipe was spicy, except for I
The
added
radish.
radishes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the radishes are, again, a little bit spicy, although cooking them takes some of the spice out of it. They're spicier when they're raw. So if you just eat them right out of the ground, they can be a little bit spicy. All right, I'm actually going to turn this off because I think this is ready to go. So does anybody in Zoom or on Facebook have any questions about this recipe?
Yes, you can cut the peppers.
I'll also mention, so like I was saying, you can make it vegan by using tofu. Um, but if you are using egg, and if you're not vegetarian or vegan, you could also add some leftover meat to this. So, for example, in the past when I've made this, last time I made this, I had made pork chops for dinner the night before, and so I had a leftover pork chop, and so I just cut that up into little tiny cubes, little bite-sized pieces, and added that to my fried rice. So if you have chicken, if you eat meat, you could add that to your fried rice as well. Add a little bit more protein, although it does have the egg for the protein. So that's an option. So again, this recipe, it's super versatile. You can use different types of veggies. You can add meat or not add meat. It's just a great way to kind of use up what you already have at home. So that's definitely one of the reasons why I like it. And I like that you cook it all in one skillet. It doesn't require lots of dishes. It's basically just your cutting board and your skillet. So it doesn't require too much cleanup. So actually, I'm going to put it on gallery view. So I can see. So if you are on Zoom and want to turn on your camera, feel free, but you don't have to. But it's so great to see Nikki and family and Khadija.
Miss Megan,
Yes.
it's not that bad. This is not that bad. It's not
The
that.
tatsoi?
Uh-huh.
Oh, good. So you tried it?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I'm glad you like it.
Hey, Megan,
Yes.
so like out of all of this, all the greens that we have, we can put anything inside, right? Like it could be, I don't really know everything that I have because I bought the family kit. Like, so like, what's this? And could I put this in or?
So what you're holding, that's lettuce. So
And this?
that's a different type of lettuce.
Okay. Okay.
You got a lot of lettuce.
Oh, really? Okay. You know what? I'm gonna put in this basil because I can smell it, so I know this is. Wait, let me see. This is basil. This is basil.
Yeah,
right?
you could definitely add basil. And you also, I know you got cilantro in your cooking kit. So the cilantro, it looks like parsley. You could add that.
Okay.
And then you could add the tatsoi as well. So the tatsoi is the dark leaf that's kind of rounded and has the white stem. You could add
I
that.
don't think I didn't get any of that.
Oh no. Okay.
I was looking for it and I was like, I don't think this is it. Yeah, I didn't get any. I don't think.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
Yeah, we didn't get any. It's okay.
Oh no. It's a bummer.
Damn.
Yeah,
Well,
it's okay. I have basil. I love basil. I'm gonna put some basil in it.
great. Yeah, the lettuce, I mean, you probably could add lettuce. I personally wouldn't. I would save the lettuce for salad.
Okay.
Yeah. We just wanted to give it to you because we had lots of it growing and it was beautiful, and so we wanted to make sure you got that.
Thank you.
So I also want to mention, since Nikki had put it on the Facebook comments, that we do still have superhero cookbooks, and Nikki and her family, they have one. I know a bunch of people have requested them, so thumbs up from Nikki. So if you'd like one, you can visit our website, which is citybloom.org, and you can request a cookbook through our Google form, and you can come pick it up from us, or we'll mail it to you. So it has a ton of great recipes in there. It's got activities for kids as well. And all of these recipes have to do with preventing lead uptake in the body. So this was part of our lead safe early care program. And one way to protect children from lead that they may be exposed to is by getting lots of good nutrients into them, because that can actually keep lead out of their bodies. So today's recipe that we made would count as a superhero recipe, because if you eat foods that are high in calcium, iron, and vitamin C, those are all good for preventing lead. So, for example, broccoli has calcium. We definitely got iron and vitamin C from all our veggies in here. So vitamin C is in colorful veggies, right? So if you want to request this cookbook, you would get lots of different recipes, you would get activities. So definitely check out our website for that. And then I also want to mention that this is the time to start planting seeds. So if anybody watching is interested in gardening, we've got our Plot It Fresh community garden that you can join. And we also have a seed share program. So again, if you visit our website, citybloom.org, you'll see more information about how to request seeds from us. And if you're a Newark resident, they're free. If you're not a Newark resident, I think there's a small fee attached, but it's small. So visit our website for that as well. And we have lots of other family programs. So the second Saturday of every month, we do our second Saturday family adventure program, and that's in our garden. It's outside, socially distanced. You have to wear a mask, but it's nice to be in person and be in the garden and do fun programs there. So definitely check out our website, our social media. You're probably already following us, but on Instagram, we're at CityBloom87, Twitter as well, and then we're on Facebook. So we post lots of updates there. So definitely check that out. So let me check the Facebook page again. Okay. Oh, so Melly was commenting, way less sodium than my usual Trader Joe's version of veggie fried rice. So that's a good point. So one of the reasons that we love to do these Family Fun in the Kitchen programs and just encouraging cooking in general is pretty much anything you cook yourself is going to be healthier than something you get from a grocery store or from a restaurant or fast food or anything like that. So that's definitely true that if you buy those already made meals, like frozen meals from ShopRite or Trader Joe's or Whole Foods or any grocery store, if you read the nutrition facts label, you're going to see it probably is loaded with sodium, right? And they have to add sodium as a preservative. But if you cook it yourself, even if you do add a little bit of salt or a little bit of soy sauce, it's going to be lower in sodium. So that's a really good point. Thanks, Melly. Great. So let's see. I'm going to add a little fried rice to my bowl here. It definitely smells good. I think it'll taste good too. So those of you who are on the Zoom, does anybody have a finished product yet that you want to show off? If you're still cooking, that's okay. But
I think Khadija does. Yeah.
yeah, it's so nice to see some people on. Ooh, that looks great. Wow, nice skillet. Oh, you
Wow,
got
they
two
went
skillets.
in. They both made a pot.
Ooh, that looks awesome. Oh, wow, okay. So we're making it spicy. Frank's Red Hot. Yeah, so if you like it spicy, you can definitely add things like that. That's awesome. Okay. Does anybody want to unmute and say if you use like different vegetables than what I was using? Or if you added anything else?
Yeah, so we ran out of soy sauce. We usually use the one that you have, the low sodium, but we ran out of it. So I quickly Googled a substitute for soy sauce, and it was what I was thinking, but I wanted to verify it. And it was a Worcestershire sauce. So I used that instead of soy sauce.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you'll have to let me know how that tastes. I would imagine that that would be good too. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't put a lot because I didn't want it to, to overpower it, but I put some, just a drop of it. So
Yeah. Nice.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and again, that just goes to show that this recipe is so flexible, and if you don't have one thing, you can use another, and it's still going to taste good. It's not like when you bake and you have to follow a recipe exactly and use exact measurements and all that. So, all right, let's see. All right, well, I'm gonna try a little bit of mine, see how it
Taste
tastes.
Let's see how it came out.
Mm.
Good?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is really tasty. Okay. Well, I think we're gonna wrap up in a minute. If anybody has any final questions, feel free to put them in the chat, put them in the comments. I think I told you about all of our other programs we've got going on. But remember to check out our website, check out our social media. For those of you who are on Zoom, I'm going to drop a survey link in the chat. If you could, and I'll email it out as well, but if you could take a minute to fill out this survey, we always appreciate the feedback.
Will do.
And I might put it on the Facebook comments as well for anybody who's watching on Facebook.
Definitely do that, because I think you had a few more people on Facebook than you did on Zoom.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'll add that to the comments. Oh, so Melly is saying in the comments on Facebook that it was so yummy. I'm glad to hear that.
Okay, Josiah.
Awesome. Okay. And I also just want to mention that this is, and anyone who got my email already knows this, but this is actually my final Family Fun in the Kitchen. Because I am moving on to a new opportunity. So I just wanted to take a minute and just thank everybody. You know, Nikki's family has come to so many, and I know a lot of you, maybe those of you watching on Facebook, have tuned in a lot. So thank you to everybody who's cooked with me. It's been so great to get to know you and make yummy food with you. And I will definitely miss this program.
There's some people in the chat saying good stuff.
Oh, thank you, Khadija. And Bianca says, my little ones are too busy right now, but I'm watching everything. Things are turning great over here. That's awesome. And
Megan, thank you so much. You made it a great adjustment going from regular cooking class to Zoom and Facebook Live. So we appreciate all your work and everything that you've done. Thank you so much.
thank you. Yeah, it's been so wonderful to get to know your family. And yeah, this will definitely continue. So we don't know when Family Fun in the Kitchen will be able to be in person again. We're looking forward to that, but definitely stay tuned. You know, this will continue. I think the last Saturday in April is the next one. So we'll have a special guest chef leading that one. And it'll be over Facebook and maybe over Zoom as well. And then hopefully as the weather warms up, we could resume in person. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today. And I hope you like your veggie fried rice and enjoy this beautiful spring weather.